It's a BumbleKast Mini, sponsored by Jolene B.
If you'd been able to use the Sonic the Comic / Fleetway characters in Archie, are there any characters you would have been interested in using? How would you have included them? Short Fuse as a Robian, Dr. Zachary as a Dark Legion member, Techno as a Battle Bird. I know it's been a while since you read STC, so broad strokes are fine.
I don't know if I'd want Techno to be a battle bird. I mean, it makes enough sense, given the colorization and her fixation on tech stuff. But I also don't want to lump everybody in with the birds. That was also kind of what I was doing back then. So if we're going by past Ian's foibles, then maybe that is how it would have gone. But she would have been a defector. In that case, would that make her a Babylon rogue? Be Amy's friendly rogue rival accomplice, maybe? Because I feel like she and Amy still need to be besties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's like what Techno is known for, as being Amy's best friend. So,
wink, wink. Best
like
friend in the same way, whisper. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Dr. Zachary being with the Dark Legion makes sense, but from what I remember of him, he was very self-serving. If anything, he was very Fenativis-like.
Mm.
So I could almost see him being a rogue agent, or maybe build a little more intrigue into the Dark Legion, because there wasn't enough already. Somebody who wanted the Grandmaster position for himself. In the line of Dimitri, they're all idiots. Let him take over and run things properly. Maybe, but was he really that much about political power, or was he all about personal power?
I don't know, man. I thought he was a doctor.
I don't know. You can take it a couple ways, I guess. But, I mean, he's a cyborg echidna. It kind of fits with Dark Legion. You can't really escape that.
Maybe.
Short Fuse, though, I would honestly want to keep him the very angry squirrel in a robot and not go with Robian. And really draw parallels with Gamma.
Yeah.
Gamma was run by a small animal and did all sorts of crazy damage. And if we could get away with it, have him power Omega.
Oh no.
The very angry squirrel in the very angry robot.
Well, now
and like if there's a concern over, brand recognition, just say that, because of the tragedy of the nature of him binding with Omega, he could never come out. We would only ever see Omega as he is, but his spirit burns on within.
I enjoy that. I appreciate that. What about any other characters from there?
I'm trying to blank on a lot of stuff. Like Grimer was okay, but we already had Snively.
Yeah,
Captain Plunder. Captain Plunder deserves his own book. I never felt like he was a really solid Sonic character, but he was great in his own right. He really should have just been his own book, his own character.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can immediately think of in Sonic the Comic.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's another question. Most of the Mercians from Archie, Bo, Munch, Alan Quayle, Friar Buck, are all clearly based on Robin Hood characters. But Thorn isn't, beyond possibly being a Maid Marian analog as the woman of the group. Did anything influence her concept and the choice to make her a Highlander lass?
She was a stopgap for Marianne, who was already a stand-in for Marianne. Both were staff users, both were the girl of the group, both were romantically tied to the Robin Hood of the group. And beyond that, it was just design-wise, there was meant to be some hint, from what I remember at least. But Aaliyah Baker, Tracy Yardley worked together to, create just an interesting lop-eared rabbit, because we hadn't seen one of those before.
Mm-hmm.
Lee's coming to correct me. Hold on.
She was only a rabbit in part because a lot of the art was already there. We basically had to make something that could fit the shapes and be redrawn over what already existed. So we couldn't make anything that was too out there in terms of a new design.
Hmm.
So that's why she basically has a similar shaped robe and kind of went with a lop-eared rabbit because, digitally editing out dreadlocks or anything might leave a lot of big empty spaces behind her head. So I figured the rabbit ears would be a good stopgap for that. They were very last minute designs. I don't know if you remember that. Oh God, what was his name? Almost he was such a Robin Hood XP that he was almost a Robin originally, and then I think it was Mike Pellerito at the last minute was like, no, name him Bo Sparrow. He's a sparrow now. So his colors and everything changed. So yeah, that's it.
Fascinating. I always like an Aaliyah cameo. It's good to hear her. Great news! Sega has just decided that the old American Sonic Bible origin, where Sonic was friends with Dr. Kintobor until he was transformed into the evil Dr. Robotnik, is canon again and wants you to incorporate it into the comics. How do you approach it? Does Sonic's relationship with Eggman change at all?
I don't know if that's good news, but
I think that's the funny thing. I mean, honestly, it would be fine. I don't know if it would change much.
No, it would add a degree of poignancy to their eternal rivalry, but they have their own styles that they won't change.
Mm-hmm.
Eggman is who he is, Sonic is who he is, and their paths have led him here. And it might help solidify Sonic's desire for Eggman to reform and go back to his old ways a little bit. It's like he knows he could be a good guy, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we already have. You get enough hate whenever you have Sonic try and get Eggman to change his ways, so maybe we shouldn't fall back on that. What Sonic game would you most like to see get a re-release or remake with updated and improved gameplay, if needed?
A Tails Adventure.
as a Metroidvania, yeah.
Yeah, just give it a razzle-dazzle upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't really need to change too much about it mechanically. Just give it the Sonic Mania treatment. Just beautiful sprite work, widescreen treatment. That would, change how the map progression goes considerably. Like, you upscale it that much, things have to change. I'm not naive about that, but yeah, just give it a nice new coat of paint. Ooh, that'd be nice.
I can't think of one, honestly, because, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Sonic 06, so saying Sonic 06 would be kind of silly, but at the same time, that seems like the one that would, I think, most likely benefit from getting a revisit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the Rivals games get a re-release.
Okay.
On a living platform.
Yeah.
Or as just digital releases. I'd like to see the storybook games. Now that would take a considerable more effort, to be sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think this.
But while you're bringing them over, do some quality of life changes. Don't completely gimp Sonic from the beginning of Secret Rings. Let him play better from the start.
Yeah, fix the controls in both of them, please. Yeah. I'm gonna say both. The storybook games. I'm with you on that one. I think that would be cool to see those.
And here's the hot take that might actually piss people off. Redo the sprite work in the Advanced series.
Mm-hmm.
They are expressive, to be sure, and they do their job fine, but I think they're really ugly overall. Very just, if you don't have it in the smallest possible resolution, they get really jagged and janky looking. So new sprites and re-release the whole Advanced series. There you go. That's a small undertaking, right?
Yeah. Not really, but it would be nice. Okay. Are there any Sonic characters you didn't much care for until you got the chance to write them? I didn't think Espia was very interesting until the Champions arc of Archie framed him as not nearly as cool and stoic as he likes to think he is, which is why I ask.
Honestly, when I first started writing, Sonic was the hardest one to get behind. Because he was such a jerk. He was such an egomaniac. And it's like, this is the jock. This is the guy who would make my time at school hard. I have to make this guy likable. What? And what I eventually found with him is to break him away from how he had been written previously and to make him more in line with the game stuff and just the general idea of someone who is just effortlessly cool. He is heroic and he is compassionate, but he's not a goody-goody. He's got that snark. He has that wit. He is the witty comeback you wish you had 30 minutes ago. And it's like, oh, he has the swagger because he has the power. He knows he can back up the bravado.
Yeah.
And so he lives it. He just lives at large. He is completely 100% comfortable in his own skin, and there is an ease there that is enviable. And once those pieces fell into place, it's like, okay, I understand now. This is why he's cool. This is why he is a hero. This is why he's fun to write and why people like him so much.
Mm-hmm.
He's still not as good as Knuckles, but no, I understand him now.
I mean, it's hard to be as good as Knuckles, to be fair. You can't be as good as Knuckles. It's too difficult.
I mean, he's rougher than the rest of them, the best of them. He's tougher than leather. How can you compete?
Yeah. Unlike Sonic, he don't chuckle, except the very first thing he notably did was chuckle and then run away.
That is a common misconception. That was a haughty chortle.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a chuckle, it was a chortle. Got it. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Good to know. Have you ever read the Martin Adams Sonic novels from the UK? If so, what did you think of them?
I never got to, no. And I'm not really familiar with them either.
I'm not familiar with them at all, actually. I don't believe so. Okay, maybe this does look familiar now, looking it up. Seeing the covers. I think that's all I've ever seen, though. If you could go back and rewrite one arc from Archie or IDW, which would you pick? Assume that this time around, input from Sega and editorial are more polite suggestions than demands, and so you can write it however you want.
If we're talking Archie, then House of Cards.
I was gonna say
easy.
Yeah, that's as far as pre-reboot. House of Cards, yeah.
I mean, I know that's the whipping boy out of them all, but that was not what I wanted to do. And
there's a reason why it is, Ian.
it was, the whole thing was built on concessions, and it's like, not so much.
Yeah.
I don't know if it counts as post boot, but Worlds Unite. I wish I could go back and
technically
just
it would
clean that up a little bit.
I guess
was it post boot?
Technically, it would be yeah, because the Worlds Collide was the impetus for the reboot. Right. Yeah.
Continuity makes sense.
Continuity.
Yeah, I wish I handled that differently. I wish circumstances in general were different about it, and just it could have been a bit better. What's there is fine. It's mostly the ancillary stories that are really the cream of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyson's work there on the final third, to be sure, but it Worlds Collide was already lightning in a bottle. You know, it set the bar super high. Worlds Unite still just it didn't touch that bar. It kind of like swung at him, went and missed. IDW, I would maybe want to rework the ending to Neo Metal's Revenge, because when it all was said and done, the revised design for Metal Overlord was good, but the big everyone coming together to fight the common foe thing just didn't quite hit as hard as Super Neo Metal did.
Yeah.
Like Super Neo Metal was so freaking cool. I knew it was going to be cool. It was great. But I figured, okay, that makes the next step in escalation even more threatening. It's like, no, should have learned my lesson from Sonic Heroes. Metal Overlord was kind of lame. You can't fix that. That's, what Tracy's design was great, and what was there is perfectly workable. I have no regrets about that. But Super Neo Metal was just, I wasn't prepared for that level of heat on that fire. So maybe that should have been just stuck with that and made that the big final foe thing. That could have been neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I keep thinking about Metal Virus every now and again. Like, how would you go back? Where would you trim the fat? Where would you change things? And it's like, I mean, aside from the shadow moment, everything is kind of how it has to be for it all to fit together in the way that I wanted it to. So it is as it is. I'll take it without, too worried about looking back.
All right. And looks like Jolene's got a couple of questions from her friend Viv, aka Toaster Girl of Lego Ideas Sonic fame, the one who basically designed the Green Hill Sonic Lego set, which is awesome.
Yeah.
How and when did the Death Egg robot found in Frontiers get destroyed? The opening of the game implies the Ancients' technology and robots were only activated by Sage interfacing with the portal. But the Death Egg robot is covered in scaffolding that was presumably built before Eggman got stuck in cyberspace.
Here's the thing. I didn't know that was going to be there. So that was added after the fact. And it's like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
And we had, opportunities to add some dialogue to scenes after the fact and tried to explain some stuff like why there's so much egg tech across the islands. And the general answer is Eggman invaded the Starfall Islands all at once. Like, he deployed material everywhere, and he just happened to land in the one spot and personally activate the portal, and everything went to hell for him. So with the Death Egg robot, my thinking was, and I can't remember exactly how we addressed this or if we were able to address it too much, was that the ancient robots immediately knee-jerk reacted to this as an invasive force and took it out. And then Sage got control of things and was trying to make things better. Well, at least for Eggman. But that was not something originally intended in the story, and was not maybe wholly covered by game events.
Related to the previous, Sage claims that she summoned the Chaos Emeralds to the island to prevent the End getting out. But the prologue comic claims that the Emeralds were gathering there before Eggman had Sage hack into the system. Is this a continuity whoops, or is there something I've misinterpreted?
No, it's a bit of a flub. It's more that she was trying to keep the Emeralds away from Sonic. It was why the Emeralds kept leaving Sonic was something that got revised multiple times as the game went on, and some of the details and how it all fit together kind of fell through the cracks. So I'm trying to hand wave and excuse this as best I can. But in the end, it's a whoops. Let's call it spade a spade. It's a whoops.
Whoops. Oopsie, oopsie. Ah, well, it happens. And our last question from Viv. E123 Omega can be pretty one-note, but seems to have an ongoing theme of loss of autonomy. In his major game appearances, it's getting locked in a room, co-opted by the humans to defeat his quote-unquote ally, and getting scrambled by Infinite, while in IDW, it's getting his body destroyed, then suborned into a new Eggman mech before being carried around in a briefcase. Do you think there's something deeper about his character that could be explored, or is it just easy to sideline a powerhouse?
I think it's the latter more than the former, but it is an interesting trend with him. And I think part of that just stems from the fact that he is the one-note, violent powerhouse. And so the most immediate thing you can do to him is rob him of that, because that is all he has in terms of personality and motivation. You can't tempt him, you can't bribe him, you can't distract him. He has no other things going on in his life. It's just that. So to put him into any kind of peril, you have to just take that away from him. And because he's a robot, you can get away with a whole lot more.
Oh, yeah. Of course. That makes sense to me. Now that Frontiers has been out for a bit, what are your hopes for the next Sonic game? That can be in terms of gameplay, setting, or story, if you're capable of commenting on that. Personally, I'd like to see the open zone gameplay applied to some more traditionally Sonic-y settings, but I'm curious what you think about it.
Ooh, we're gonna be tiptoeing along this line, yeah. I do hope that they stick with the open zone design. I think Frontiers proves that is a viable way of doing a Sonic game, and that now that has been proven, it's time to iterate on that, to fine tune and to experiment.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
Sonic's there. Now let's expand. What does Tails do in this environment? What does Knuckles do in this environment? What does Amy do in this environment? Can they find ways to make the regions feel more cohesive? Could we maybe see in a next title things optimized so you could go from one island to the other, and it's not just Grass Island, Desert Island, Fire Island?
Yeah.
which is fine in and of itself because I mean Sonic is known for its localized locations. I mean that's the thing that
Mhm.
Sonic does. But I'm thinking like, how cool could it be if like you rebuilt Sonic Adventure in that engine and you could actually take the train from Station Square to Mystic Ruins?
Mhm.
Like you could actually see the crashed egg carrier out in the bay and take the boat there instead of having a loading screen.
Yeah. Or you could just run to it. Just run to the instead of taking the train.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to sit there and watch things go by, but maybe you want to. Maybe you want to just chill out for a second, check your phone,
But
and
you
ride the
could.
train for the novelty of riding the train.
But you could, yes.
And then when the train goes on strike, you just run anyway. I mean, or like it would be much harder to do that for like Sonic Adventure 2 because that was all more random stages connected by a very interpretive world map. But like make something feel altogether one. Like imagine, I know that we're going, nostalgia is kind of tired at this point, and I don't want to see Green Hill again. But
How about Emerald Hill?
well, yeah, that too. But
No, I'm saying, what about Emerald Hill? We could have Emerald Hill.
We'll get there.
Okay.
What if you made South Island like
Okay,
the
so-
actual South Island?
Okay, Sonic 2. Yeah.
No, that's West Side Island.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like
South Island is
like
Sonic
South
1,
Island,
right?
yeah, South Island Sonic
Yeah.
1, and we actually get
Right,
kind of
okay.
a map of that in the Game Gear game.
Right.
And there's a bunch of different zones from across different games that all happen on South Island. So actually put it together. Start in Green Hill and actually make your way to Marble Zone or Spring Yard and whatnot. You know, travel these locations and make it feel like an actual island, or West Side Island, because we know there's a bunch of stuff that happens in that set of islands. We don't have as good a view of those islands, but we still know they all happen in the same general space. We have a kind of basic idea of what the island looks like. Do that. Like, oh my God, dude, just we have this ability now to explore a world with Sonic. So let's build a world. Let's and go explore. And story-wise, I would like to be able to pitch and be lead scenario on one. Maybe, possibly, please.
Fingers
We'll see.
crossed. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'd love to see more iteration on what worked with Frontiers. That is really where things need to go. Don't throw the whole thing out and do something completely different again. Just build on what you have, make it, refine it, make it even better, and just keep going.
And let me stress this here now, that none of that is a knowing smile. That is 100% fan idea on my part. Like, that's just something I want to see personally. That is not any kind of insider info. That is not a factoid to be had on a wiki somewhere. I did not spill any beans. So please don't say I did and spread misinformation and potentially get people mad. That's just me being me.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
All right. Do you ever find it difficult to hit the right balance of niceness to edge with Sonic's character? I really enjoyed stuff like Sonic's reaction to Tails asking if he was being a burden to being, wow, how'd you come to that well thought out conclusion? It feels like a throwback to the more attitude-y Sonic, who means well but isn't necessarily the best at expressing it seen in older media, and I'd love to see more like it.
Sometimes. I have received notes in the past where it's like, this is a little too mean. Soften it, please.
This isn't Fleetway, Ian. Calm down.
Now, to be fair, it's usually in reaction to one of the villains. Like, most of those notes came when he was dealing with the Zeddy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we had to revise an entire panel when they're getting loaded on the rocket to go, because he was just, he was so happy. They were unhappy. He was smug about it. It's like, okay, he's not vindictive. You know, he's not vengeful. That's not Sonic.
Mm.
He's just a little snarky sometimes. He's got a little bit of a pithy attitude, but he's not mean, and that's the thing. So usually I catch it. Usually it's like I go back and, on the second read and go, No, that's a little too spicy. Let's tone it back. But sometimes it does get, a note saying, no, little too much.
Oh, let Sonic say a swear. Let Sonic be mean. Wait, he said a swear in Sonic X. Japanese version, at least. All right, and the final question. How annoying is it that I feel the need to provide several sentences worth of clarification for every question I ask? Jolene, you've not even approached the level of many of the other questions we have received. So you're fine.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yep.
And at the same time, even the folks who go on longer, I understand because, we can only do so much Q&A at a time. And how frustrating would it be for you to wait and wait and wait for an answer, and then the answer is, I don't understand what you're asking. Sorry. I pull my hair out. So
yeah,
I completely understand why folks want to be as clear as possible with what they're asking so that they can get an answer that they're looking for, or at least a satisfying answer.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all we got.
Yep. Thank you to Jolene B for sponsoring this mini. If you want one of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member.
Catch you next time.